What's up? What's happening? It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Some of you may listen for 3 hours today. I hope you get to move faster than that, unless you're listening, of course, on the free Odyssey app. I am scared that some of you will be stuck driving. The traffic is terrible. That is the nature of today, but Godspeed. And good luck. We'll do our best to entertain you. Well, if you're listening to us for 3 hours, by the end, you'll be listening to Dave Johnson with the pregame show. We're on until 6:45. Wizards and Hornets tonight down in Charlotte. Dave will join us at 6:15. But today's kind of a fun show. One, from a personnel standpoint, everybody, welcome Michael Mayer, everybody. Hey! Michael's here in for Anthony, in for Vic, kind of, because Vic was here the last couple days for Ant. Now you're in. How are you feeling on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
I'm feeling great, Craig. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
You as well. And now I've forgotten what I was going to say. I got all sidetracked. Oh, that's what I was going to say. God, I've been having, like, remember when you were in high school and you had senioritis, like the end of your senior year? That's kind of what I feel like the last couple of days. I know I got a couple-day break coming. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to turkey. My wife and I cooked a bunch of stuff earlier. She did a lot of it. I tried to help as much as I could. She's a saint, and I am so ready for Thanksgiving tomorrow. But what I love about today's show, Mike, is it's kind of a Wednesday, kind of a Thursday, kind of a Friday show. We're going to take elements of our show that we do every week and kind of mix them all together into this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So you'll get Never Read the Comments because it's a Wednesday at 5:30. And normally we do a lot of that stuff at 5:30, so we had to move some stuff around. We have our NFL picks coming at 4:30. And, Mike, I just heard from Anthony. He just landed wherever he's gone for Thanksgiving. Top secret location, of course. He's going to send in his picks. So we won't be able to get Anthony on the show to do the picks. But as he is waiting for his bags in an airport somewhere, he is sending me his picks. So the NFL picks will go around the NFL like we normally do on Fridays. We're just going to do that at 4:30. You get a little Take Command today. You get a little Dave today. So all in all, a great show. But where we start our Friday shows, and we'll start here today, is by asking the question, what's at stake for the Commanders? And this is incredibly anticlimactic, but I actually don't think there's a lot at stake tomorrow, which is probably a very different opinion than you've heard all day, and whether you're listening to us, whether you're listening to the fan, whether you're reading, variety of columnists who are saying, well, Ron Rivera's job, if he loses big to Dallas, like, he could get fired. Technically, yes. I think if they get blown out 50-0, like, at that point, if you're Josh Harris, you have to worry about, hey, we've lost the locker room. We got to do something. We thought Ron could be the guy to land the plane, and it's pretty clear he's not going to run. He can't do that. They've stopped listening to him. They've stopped playing hard, and this is not acceptable in terms of the culture we want to establish moving forward. So, like, I do want to be very clear that I'm not saying there is no way that by the time we come to work on Monday that Rivera is 100% or that Rivera is gone or that they've made some kind of change or whatever. But realistically, unless it goes super duper sideways, which is possible. Dallas is pretty good. They're explosive. They create a bunch of big plays, and this team stinks at preventing teams from giving up big plays. Unless it goes super duper sideways and Sam has a stinker, the offense is inept, bunch more turnovers, bunch of sacks, and the defense can't stop anything, I actually don't think there's a lot on the line on Sunday. Now, of course, if you want to look at it, or on Thursday, realistically, if you want to make the playoffs, you have to win. Like, you're at we must win. Yes, you're not that far out of it, but there's a bunch of teams between you and being in it in terms of that 7th spot. They're all pretty mediocre too. That's the nature of it. But none of them have the defense in the league that's given up the most points and the most yards. That's your team. Like, we are talking about a bad football team. One that started 2-0 against the Cardinals, who had just traded for Josh Dobbs a week prior, and the Broncos, who at the time were on pace to be the worst defense in NFL history. And they figured out how to turn it around midseason, which makes a lot more sense than the Commanders turning it around because they had a bunch of new people in charge. The Commanders, it's like, hey, it's all the same people. Why are we doing this again? But you beat those two teams, and you're 2-7 since. You've lost 4 of 5, with your one win being against Mac Jones in New England, and they did have the ball with a chance to go up on you until Mac Jones, well, he's not very good, so it didn't go anywhere. But, like, that was a close game where New England had the ball at the end with a chance to win. And so, all in all, like, realistically, there's not much on the line but draft position, which is very important in the long term. But it's weird to have this early. Like, we've been through some bad and slow and uninteresting Decembers before. But there's just such a lack of drama, which is weird because this team is always full of drama and of the general football variety and the non-football, can you believe this bleep variety. Realistically, though, we know there's full-sale coaching changes coming. We're pretty sure they obviously the next quarterback or the next GM and head coach are going to have to decide what they think of Howell. But we're pretty sure, like, he's pretty solid. I guess there's a little mystery around EB, but if they're going to hire an offensive coach, like, EB's not coming back. And I don't say that with, like, any joy or glee. Like, Eric Bieniemy is a good football coach, and I think he'll be better next year wherever he is than he was this year because he did have that year of experience away from Andy Reid doing it on his own. Hire him, and he'll do a good job there. So at the end of the day, like, what's left? Are you going to pick 7th, 9th, or 5th? You lose tomorrow, you're closer to 5th than 9th. Okay, cool. And to be at this point, this early is pretty nuts. 2019 was the last time it happened. And obviously that was when Jay got canned 5 games into the season. But for as much as everyone wants to say Rivera's job is on the line, I don't think it is unless he gets absolutely dump trucked. They want him to be able to just take it through the end of the season. They want to leave EB in place to be able to work with Sam as much as he can. There's no one that's ever sniffed defensive coordinator to replace Del Rio. And I think most importantly, like, there's nothing to save. And I hate that. There's a part of me that doesn't even want to say that out loud because then, like, why should y'all listen to me? What are we doing with sports radio if the team's season's over? I'm sure my boss isn't psyched that this is my take today. But at the end of the day, like, call it like I see it. And I would be beyond thrilled that if a month from now they've won 4 in a row, they beat Dallas, they beat Miami, they beat the Jets, they do the unthinkable. And this is the most freezing cold take that I will ever utter into a microphone. Am I going to full on Chris Russell it and say, hey, if they make the playoffs, I don't know, dance the polka all the way to Ashburn or something ridiculous? No, I'm not going to do that. No. You do that, bad things happen. Didn't Linnell almost lose some eyebrows or something this year? Bad situation. Yeah, Mike, you were there for that, weren't you?
Yeah, I think it was the eyebrows was one of the games, and then the Bills game was jumping through a table.
Yeah, he never jumped through a table, did he?
Nope.
We'll have to correct that. We are good on this show of making people follow through on their bets. We don't make the bets on this show. But if, say, you run your mouth about a basketball game one-on-one, the whole internet might see you get smoked 11-1 eventually. Ooh, sorry to bring that wasn't very holiday season of me to bring up, was it? Anyway, the point is, I don't think that there's much on the line tomorrow. So the good news is, like, just enjoy your family. Just enjoy, or not your family, your friends. If you're like, I'm not doing the family Thanksgiving thing, that is not joy. Okay, I get that. Totally. Just enjoy your friends. Enjoy nothing. Enjoy silence. I have a really good friend of ours, and she was like, you know what I'm looking forward to? Not talking to anybody. And she's going to sit on her couch in silence and take joy in that, and I have lots of admiration for that. So whatever it is that you are doing tomorrow, enjoy it. Do not let whatever happens in Dallas ruin if they win and that makes you happy, let it make your day. But if they do not play well or they lose or whatever, just shake it off, eat some more sweet potato pie, and have a great Thanksgiving. There's not much on the line. It is what it is. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Now, with that said, my job is to talk about the game, whether there's something on the line or not. And obviously, look, they still can make the playoffs. They can do all these things. The math is the math. However unlikely, they're still alive. So what would it take for them to win? Plus, by the way, I will say this. It is Dallas week. And I know that has lost some luster over the years as it has not been nearly as competitive. However, I know that there's a lot of you listening that are like, hey, if we only win 5 games this year, but we beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, I'm pretty psyched about that because we beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So how do they do that? Tell you keys to the game next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our picks for Week 12 around the NFL coming up at the bottom of the hour. Right now, though, time to look at the keys to the game for the Commanders against the Dallas Cowboys. Bad news. It's going to be tough. Cowboys are a very solid football team. The Commanders are not a very good football team. But Sam Howell played decently against them last year. Obviously, that was kind of a wacky game. You get some special teams turnovers. Like you get some great field position. You get that early touchdown, and the game flows in your favor. And we've seen, unfortunately, this year how important game flow is when it flows against you. With teams like the Giants getting out ahead, and you just can't control the game like you want to. But I think for Washington, there are some things where, okay, they played Seattle tough. They played Philly tough. Why do they play those teams tough? There's some elements of what Dallas does that I think plays to some of those reasons. Also, this morning on Take Command, Logan described the Dallas defense as a mix between the Giants' front end and the Bills' back end, and I nearly threw up in my mouth. Because that's literally the worst possible thing based off how you've played against those teams this season. Remember, Sam, 9 sacks, 4 picks against Buffalo, something like that. Obviously, the Giants, a zillion sacks the first time around, just general ineptitude second time around with the fumbles, and then they did pick him off 3 times and the whole deal. So the positive side, let's start on the defensive side for the Commanders. All right. So again, good news, bad news. The good news is that the Cowboys don't really do anything that complicated offensively. Like Mike McCarthy runs a very vanilla offense. The bad news is it's really good vanilla. Like if you've ever had just like a great vanilla ice cream and you're like, I don't know, man, this is pretty good. Like, yeah, it's better with some toppings on it, but just a really good cream. You're just like, wow, this is incredibly well done. This is its purest form. Like that's the Cowboys offense. There's not a lot of sprinkles. There's not a lot of there's no hot fudge. There's no toppings on it. They don't use a lot of motion. They don't use a bunch of shifts. They don't have guys lining up in funky places. Like they just run offense and they create good matchups. Like they don't even run like a bunch of bunches and stacks. Like they line guys up. They make it so Dak can pretty easily identify who's covering who. They try to space it out a little bit. They mix in a lot of run. They have a really good offensive line, and they execute. And that is one school of thought that I think is good. It's not how I would run an offense necessarily. I like the motions. I like the shifts. I like the bunches. I like the stacks. I like making things that my offense has a command of that confuse the defense. But the most important part of that is that my guys have the command of it, and they have a high command of this offense. And that's why they're very successful, especially against bad teams. When they line up against Carolina, when they line up against New York, when they line up against some of these teams that they've absolutely dump trucked, laid 40-plus on multiple times this year, it's because they just line up and beat you. And CeeDee Lamb is really good, and Brandon Cooks in certain matchups is a nightmare. And, Michael Gallup's explosive, and Tony Pollard is good and is looking better week by week the farther and farther he is removed from his leg injury last year. Dak is playing really freaking good ball. And so that is the bad news. They're good. They're really good. They understand how to get what they want, and they're good at getting it. Or that's the bad news, right? The good news is the stuff that has really killed Washington is that confusing stuff. Like when they line up and it's just one-on-one and it's like, all right, I've got you. They fared basically okay this year unless the you on the other side of the line of scrimmage is A.J. Brown. A lot of those other receivers, they had that long stretch where they gave up 100 yards to a top receiver every week. But so many of those were like coverage busts and guys getting deep balls and missed tackles. It wasn't just like mano-a-mano killing it. Because even like DJ Moore, yes, he had a couple of those big plays on Forbes that were not good. And by the way, Emmanuel Forbes is out for this game, which really stinks. I was really looking forward to him matching up with CeeDee Lamb to kind of be a great test. He's had 2 good games recently, but they were against New England and New York. And it's like, okay, well, they don't exactly have the league's best receivers. How are you going to play? But, think of the coverage busts that DJ Moore was able to exploit, right, for Chicago. So you have all these receivers, some of them who are good players, but are exploiting weaknesses in a Commander's defense that are not going to be exposed by the way Dallas runs their offense. So if you want a glimmer of hope, it's that. The bad news is they're super explosive. They take shots. This team has been terrible at preventing shots from hitting, and I do not have a lot of hope that they can keep the Cowboys under 30 points. I just don't. Line up, play it, and, it's going to be, I joked about this when we taped Take Command this morning. The preview, by the way, is out now. I just posted a clip of it on my YouTube page at Craig Hoffman. Full episode at 106.7 The Fan, and, of course, the audio's in all your favorite podcast apps. But the way Logan charts plays is it's green dots for good plays, red dots for bad plays. And I was like, there's probably going to be a lot of green dots. Like, there's going to be a lot of good plays. It's just that those red dots are going to be really bad. And if you give up, 7, 8 explosive plays and they run 60, like percentage-wise, okay. It's just how bad are those red plays? And if there are 5 of them are like 40-yard touchdowns, then it doesn't matter how many green dots you have. If they're 15-yard big plays that you're like, that sucks, but like then we bowed up and made them punt, then you're fine. But I think that's the kind of game that they're headed for. They're not going to have like a zillion bad plays, but the end result is going to be really bad because the bad plays they have are going to be explosive touchdown scoring plays. On the offensive side of it, like, I don't have a lot of faith in this offensive line to be able to pick up what Dallas does and get the protection set. And maybe that could actually work in their favor. This is talk about spinning optimism here, but because they're on a short week and because they don't have time to rep it, because they don't have time to watch the film and do all the things that you do on a regular week against this Dallas rush that is really good at using 4- and 5-man pressures and moving Micah Parsons around and moving DeMarcus Lawrence around, and they're all good rushers and creates just a hellacious front to deal with that Dan Quinn has mastered over the years. I wonder if EB runs it more and moves the pocket a ton and then tries to use a ton of screens. And actually, he gets away from the drop back game that exposes Sam because he can't protect him with protection. And he's like, I got to protect him as a play caller. I got to do all this other stuff. And if they do that, I think they have a chance. If they drop Howell back 35, 40 times in this game, and most of it is like true drop back, they are going to get smoked. And he's going to get hit a lot. He's going to throw picks. It's going to be bad. Just feel pretty confident in that. And then on the back end, they got a bunch of ball hawk playmakers. So Sam's got to be really careful while also playing free and cutting it loose. And, at the end of the day, like, if I'm EB, I'm taking this one on me. I'm saying I gotta do a good job of setting him up, and I got to make sure he feels comfortable, and I got to tell him, hey, dude, go let it rip. I want you to be aggressive. I want you to go try to make plays. I want you to throw that deep ball. I want you to try to rip that deep one. Like, don't hold the ball. Don't wait for it. Rip it. And if it's not there, aggressively get to the check down. And that's the mentality they have to have in this game. Everything is aggressive, even if it's checking the ball down. If it's there, throw it. If it could be there, throw it. If not, get to the check down, live to see another down. You're not going to go broke making a profit. And you're going to have to play a game that's got some high variance to it because at the end of the day, your defense is probably giving up 30, and you can't handle it by getting stressed out and anxious and not holding on to the football, which is exactly what they did last week against the Giants, whose offense shouldn't have been anywhere remotely close to scoring 30. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Those are your keys to the game. We get back, we will pick every single game of Week 12. Anthony's picks are in. Mike's going to hop in on the picks. I've, of course, got mine. We'll see if Mike can just steal a picks championship from us next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. So, normally 5:30 on Fridays we make our NFL picks, but we're not going to be here on Friday, and like half the games in the league will have already been played by then. So we decided to take our Friday staple, move it here, and of course we also track the picks and you know who's got who throughout the season, and that becomes an important part of the show because I get to razz Anthony for how terrible his picks are. And as Michael is in today for Ant, what's really, really funny, Mike, is I think for the first time, or the second time all season, first time since week 1, I think Ant beat me last week.
You've just been on a heater this whole season.
Yeah, I mean, some I've been on kind of a heater, but also some weeks that I was terrible, he was just worse. Like, I was bad, he was embarrassing.
I think football might be the hardest sport to predict.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I've often said, my old friend Ian Fitzsimmons was fond of saying, they don't air condition the desert because they lose, and they do this with the spread. We do it straight up, and it's still hard. However, Anthony's not here to celebrate, sadly, because, like, for instance, last week, we were the same on most of the games. Chargers, Dolphins, Commanders, Cowboys, yep, down the list. And then I had the who did I have? What was it? I had the Seahawks, he had the Rams, and then he had the Eagles and I had the Chiefs. So we're basically the same on all those games except for that. And then he got me. I'm going to make him do the math when we get back on the actual records. But he has sent in his picks. So we have Anthony Haney picks for this week. We'll let him get some bragging in on Monday no matter how the picks go today. But alas, it is time to go around the NFL. So here's how it works. We give you some thoughts, some analysis. Some of it's good. Some of it's just for funsies on these games as we go around the league. And then we will make a pick, Mike. So we got Lions and Packers, which is actually the most common Thanksgiving matchup in NFL history. This will be their 22nd time, I believe I remember seeing, playing on Thanksgiving. Lions, 12:30 noon or 12:30 kickoff on Thanksgiving, as is tradition. It's going to be – I'm really excited for this game. I think the Lions are actually now at the point where they're underrated. They're 16-4 in their last 20 games. There just aren't a lot of – like, if you go 2 season stretches in NFL history, there can't be more than, like, 15 teams in the 104-year history of the league that have done that. There just aren't a lot of 20-game stretches that are as good as what they've been. And I don't know if they can hold it all the way through the Super Bowl, for instance, but, like, they're really freaking good. And then the Packers, who knows what they are week to week. Coming off a big win, they're 4-6. They're like the Commanders, still theoretically fighting for the playoffs. They've, of course, had their bye, so they're a little closer to 500, 4-6 as opposed to Washington's 4-7. But I'm excited to see what version of the Packers offense shows up. But this could be a true coming out party for the Lions. They're 7.5-point favorites, and like if they go out and Amon-Ra St. Brown goes nuts and the run game gets going, like they could blow the doors off the Packers, and everyone's going to suddenly be like, "Oh man, these Lions are very for real."
Yeah, it just completely depends which Detroit team shows up. Like if the same team that shows up to play as the Bears last week, we're in for a close battle. But yeah, I completely expect the Lions to just show out tomorrow and blow the doors off them.
I feel like Dan Campbell's going to be up in that. Like, his pregame speech is going to be awesome tomorrow. Hey, guys, like, this is our chance to go out and prove that we're not the same old Lions. We're not this. We're not that. So I'm going Detroit. Mike, who do you got?
Give me the Detroit Lions.
And that is who Anthony has as well. All right, our game, if you will. Commanders and Cowboys, 4:30 on CBS. So you got Jim Nantz. Hello, friends. Not Troy Aikman. Jeez. Troy Aikman was never at CBS. I was just thinking Dallas and thought Aikman. Whatever. Tony Romo, Aikman. Apparently, I want Troy Aikman to call the game. What if Troy's just there, hanging out in the booth? That'd be weird. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson, and the CBS crew. There, 4:30 is your kickoff time. Dallas up to a 12.5-point favorite. And I think there is a nasty little chance, Mike, that they cover that. That this is a blowout game. And I'll do a full score prediction for this one, as we usually do for the Commanders games. I'm thinking like it's, well, I guess if it's 30-20, they technically don't cover, so I guess I'll take the Commanders to cover, but I think that's the kind of game you're looking at, that it's like 30-20, but it could get worse. It could be 35-20, somewhere in there. Sam will have a couple nice drives and make a couple big throws. They'll score some points because EB is always going to have his foot on the gas pedal. And this offense is too good and too talented to be, like, shut out. But offensively, Dallas is licking their chops. They are so ready for this.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but give me the Cowboys. I do think we cover, though. I think there's a decent chance we cover. But, yeah, Cowboys going to win this one.
They have played good, at Buffalo being the exception. They've generally played a lot of good teams well. They played Philly well. Seattle's, like, solid. They played them well. And they've also done a lot of undulating this year, up and down, up and down, up and down. So maybe they're due for an up week. Just holding out hope. I've got the Cowboys, as does Anthony. Everybody in agreement so far. Last game on Thanksgiving, 49ers and Seahawks, 7.5-point road favorites for San Francisco. Have we seen an official word on Geno Smith? He is playing, I believe. Just going to look that up real quick. But he obviously is coming off of that elbow injury. He's officially listed as questionable as of half an hour ago, so it wasn't like I missed something. Smith with the elbow, questionable for Thursday's game against the 49ers. And I think all that really matters there is, like, if he doesn't play, they have no chance of covering. If he does play, they can cover. But when this San Francisco team has Debo, CMC, Purdy, Ayuk, and Trent on the field, like, they look like the best team in football. And that's what they've been basically since the bye week. They are killing people, and I know they're way better at home than on the road, but I do expect that to continue. I would take San Francisco in this one. And if Drew Lock has to play, yikes, bro.
Yep, we're agreeing once again, man. Give me the Niners to win, and for what it matters, give them to cover too. They're gonna win this game by over a touchdown, easy.
So we are all. Oh, Anthony forgot to pick that one. Good job, Ant. You missed a game. Do I have Seahawks or 49ers anywhere on his list? Nope. He forgot to pick that game. I'm going to say he would have picked the 49ers, but I'm going to text him just to make sure. Seahawks or 49ers? Come on, Haney. You're on vacation. I guess that's probably a good reason to leave him alone, but it's the picks. Got to get him in. Friday, Black Friday football. By the way, I also had this terrible thought. If Ron gets fired on Friday, because they typically call Sunday after the season Black Monday, it's just spinning Black Friday. I'm not rooting for that. Also, because that would mean I probably should do a YouTube live stream, but I don't want to have to work on Friday. But just saying. The planned Black Friday football, Prime Video, by the way, official Anthony pick, 49ers. Dolphins, Jets. You have Tim Boyle starting. That could have been a fun game we could have played, Mike. I could have said, is this the Jets starting quarterback, giving you like 4 choices? And there's a good chance you probably wouldn't have known that Tim Boyle was an actual real NFL quarterback. But that's who's starting. Trevor Siemian's the backup. Zach Wilson will be active as the third quarterback for some unknown reason. And the Dolphins, I think, are going to go into New York and probably not win by as many as people think because the Jets are going to play a super conservative type of game. Their defense is actually legitimately good. It could be cold and windy, which is not good for like the track team they've got in Miami. But at the end of the day, like the Dolphins should go in there and ultimately win this game handily.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. The over-under for this one is 41. I feel like that's kind of low. It's like scary low.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I mean, I guess they just think that the Jets offense is going to be putrid, which, like, based off recent results, tracks. Well, let's see. What'd you say, 41?
41. I feel like the Dolphins might get that on their own, dude. I mean, the Jets suck.
I mean, you're not wrong. But, like, if they win, 30-7, you're still hitting the under,
Yep.
So it's one of those.
Yeah, give me the Dolphins here, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so also Anthony, not surprisingly, on the Dolphins. All right, let's get into some actual interesting games on Sunday. Saints-Falcons, which is too much of a matchup for NFC South supremacy, considering the records here. But the Saints at 5-5, the Falcons at 4-6, and the Bucs at 4-6 are battling for the division. Gross. Like, this is the NFC East in 2020 when the Commanders won it. Atlanta going back to Desmond Ridder. They're at home. The Saints, they're starting Jameis, right? If I'm remembering correctly. Carr's got the injury. Let me just double check on that real quick. Carr fully practiced Wednesday, but the quarterback still needs to be cleared by an independent neurologist. So at the time of picks, which is my least favorite thing, we're not going to know who the quarterback is going to be. Atlanta's favored by 1. I have no trust in Atlanta and no trust in Ridder. I'm going to take New Orleans no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah, this is an absolute toss-up, but I'll take the Falcons here. I think they'll establish a little bit of a run game and, just pull it out at the end. Last-second field goal, maybe.
That is their specialty. Younghoe Koo has hit so many game-winning field goals for them. Also an excellent fantasy kicker. Trust me, I know from experience. Steelers and Bengals. The Burrow-less Bengals, sadness. 5-5 on the year. They had come back after that rough start against the now Matt Canada-less Pittsburgh Steelers. Thank God. First time, this stat, I'm sure, Mike, you saw it, absolutely bananas. It's the first time the Steelers have fired a head coach or coordinator in season since 1941. They just don't do it as an organization. Now, granted, they've only had like 3 coaches in that time span. They had Chuck Noll forever, Bill Cowher forever, and Tomlin has been going forever. He's nearing like his 20th season, I think, soon, which is nuts because it still feels like he's one of the youngest coaches in the league. But yeah, they are so bad offensively, but I just don't know that the Bengals can do a whole lot. Steelers favored by 1.5. I think young quarterback, inexperienced quarterback for the Bengals against the Steelers defense. I think I'll take Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, give me Pittsburgh as well. Like, just Joe Burrow's out for the rest of the season. TJ Watt's going to be wreaking havoc. Micah Fitzpatrick might get an interception. Yeah, just give me the Steelers. It's going to be a good win for them.
All right. By the way, Anthony in this one, he had the Saints in the last game. And I'm looking for Steelers or Bengals. Steelers. Whatever list he was looking at is out of order. You hate to see it. Panthers, Titans. Ugh. So people are going to pay money to go to this game. And I guess they get to see 2 young quarterbacks, which is exciting. Will Levis versus Bryce Young. But I don't know. Like, this game stinks. We don't need to talk about it very much. Mike, who you picking in it?
Give me the Tennessee Titans in this one. Will Levis might have a little bit of a day.
I agree with that. I don't even know if Levis can have a day. I just think the Panthers are so bad offensively that against a well-coached, Vrabel defense, even if it's not very talented, they got it. All right, Colts and Bucs. Colts, who cut Shaq Leonard earlier this week. Not like he was playing a whole lot for them, but kind of a surprising move. Shakes up the locker room a little bit. Buccaneers 4-6 on the year, trying to stay alive in that NFC South. Man, what a tough one. I think I'll take Indy here. They're at home. JT looks really, really good. There's not a lot. What they need to do is just stay on top of Mike Evans, and I think you're good. And I think they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, give me the Tampa Bay Bucks here, man. I don't know. I just got a weird hunch. I mean, neither of these teams are really that good, but they're also kind of clawing. They're in the hunt for a playoff spot, that last wild card. But yeah, give me the Bucks.
Anthony has his boys, the Colts, in that one. Patriots and Giants. What a grotesque football game. We're going to make a pick and otherwise not talk about this game. We're not going to ever mention that it's like this. I would rather watch the Tennessee-Carolina game than this nonsense. I'll take the Giants.
I'll take New England in this one. I feel like Giants are a bad team, even though they got the win against us last week, and Patriots are bad as well, but they're just not as bad as the Giants.
Actually, oh man, because Belichick destroys young quarterbacks, and DeVito's that. But like the Giants defense against whatever they put out at quarterback, I'll take New England.
Over-under in that game is set at 34.5.
Not low enough.
I agree.
That's going to be like a 12-10 game. All right, Jags and Texans. And Mike, we can loop that music. There you go. He was already on it. Should have just let it happen. Mike knows what he's doing back there. Whatever. Jags and Texans, divisional matchup. This one for AFC South supremacy. Texans led, of course, by C.J. Stroud, who had a 3-pick game last week, but still led the Texans to victory. Jags looked a lot better last week, but still not quite there offensively. You know what? I'm going for the upset here. They're at home, but they're dogs, 2-point dogs, are the Texans. I'm taking Houston in this one. I just like the swag of that team. I think the way CJ plays, I think what D'Amico brings, there's just something about him that I really like, and something feels, even though they're 7-3, and I was high on the Jags for a lot of this year, something just feels off there. So I'm going with the vibes, Mike. That's your analysis in this game. I like the vibes of the Houston Texans.
The vibes in Houston right now are incredible. But that being said, man, I just think it depends on which Jacksonville team shows up. But if it's anywhere near the team that showed up last week, the Jaguars are going to win this game. The Texans may have met their match this week.
And with me on the Texans. How about this game? Browns-Broncos in Denver, now into the 4 o'clock kicks on Sunday. The Broncos, who previously were known as the worst team in the NFL, the Browns, who were previously known as on pace to have the best defense in NFL history, now Denver's 1.5-point favorites. Of course, Dorian Thompson-Robinson continuing to be the starter for Cleveland. The Broncos, Russell Wilson, 19 touchdowns to 4 picks on the year. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm taking Denver. Like, Sean Payton's figured it out. Maybe he knows what he's doing. Maybe people wrote him off too quickly. Maybe, we should not say a guy's cooked because he hasn't coached in a year and is trying to figure out a roster and we're 8 games into it. Yeah, I think that's stuff. I'll take Denver.
Browns got a big win last week against the Steelers, but I'm going to ride the hot hand here and take Denver mile high. I just think they pull this out. It's going to be real close, though, in my opinion.
Anthony also on the Broncos. Rams and Cardinals. Sneaky fun game. Rams obviously looked a lot better last week. Beating Seattle. I mean, they scrapped it together. Seattle was a mess. 17-16, they won that game. It was hideous. But definitely looked better than it had previously with Stafford back at the helm. Obviously, the Cardinals being more competitive with Kyler Murray. Arizona 1-point favorites at home. Mike, who you got in this one?
Wins are hard to come by for Arizona, but they're going to pick up a win here on Sunday. So give me the Arizona Cardinals.
I got a funky feeling about this one, too. Haven't the Cardinals, just weirdly had McVay's number?
Yep.
It's been a thing. I'll take Arizona as well. Anthony has the Rams. Chiefs and Raiders. Chiefs coming off that tough loss on Monday Night Football. Obviously, the Raiders coming off a tough loss as well. Kind of a reality check against the Dolphins, but playing a lot better since Antonio Pierce took over as head coach. Here's the thing. The Chiefs looked really good offensively in the first half and then just totally poo-pooed themselves in the second half. I think they're too good and they're too smart and they're too talented to not be able to eventually put together 60 minutes of football. And maybe the Eagles' loss was a wake-up call of some kind that they needed, or like a, hey, we got to figure out what we did in the first half of that game and figure out how to repeat it type of thing. Because watching that game, like their offense in the first half looked super. Like you have motion all over the place. Mahomes is dealing. You're running the football well with Pacheco, and it just went to crap in the second half. Obviously, it would help if the receivers could catch, but I still believe in the Chiefs. Their defense is nasty. I'll take Kansas City, even though it's on the road. They're 8.5-point favorites. I think it'll be closer than that, but I'll take the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll take the Chiefs as well. They just got to get right after that Eagles loss, and hopefully MVS can catch a football.
Yeah, that would be nice. If he could, they would be 8-2, as with the Eagles. Instead, they're 7-3. The Eagles are 9-1, and they play at 4:25 on Sunday against the Bills. This game is only a 3.5-point spread, and I think that is very, very smart by the dudes in the desert. The Eagles' defensive backfield is one that you can take advantage of. And I think Josh Allen could have a big day on Sunday. Like, Diggs should have a 10-catch, 150-yard day. And there's a chance that they ride that to victory. The Eagles just have a toughness about them that I'll take Philly to win the game. But I will not be surprised if the Bills go into Philly and pull an upset. Obviously, Eagles on a short week, coming off a super intense and emotional win in the Super Bowl rematch, the Kelsey Bowl, all those things. Then you got 6 days, and you got to get ready for Josh Allen. And the Bills looked a little bit better last week. They obviously get a win. They had a soft opponent, but they get a win. I'll take the Eagles, but I think that I will not be surprised if Buffalo wins this game.
Yeah, it really just depends on how Josh Allen plays. It's hit or miss, but the Eagles have gotten lucky too many times this season, in my opinion. Give me the Buffalo Bills to go into the Link and steal a win.
You know what, Mike? You've inspired me. I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. You've inspired me. I'm switching my pick.
Let's go, baby.
There's something weird about that matchup. It's just staring me in the face. Anthony has the Eagles, and he's going to be so mad if we're right on Monday. Ravens and Chargers, Sunday Night Football. I'll take Baltimore on the road. This is the kind of game that Baltimore wins and the Chargers lose. It will be close, and it will be heartbreaking, and Brandon Staley will have to answer awkward questions afterwards, but give me Baltimore.
Yep, the Chargers, their favorite bit this year is to lose every football game by 3 points. So give me the Ravens to win, but they're not covering 3.5. They will probably win by 3.
And then Bears and Vikings. Anthony has the Ravens. Bears and Vikings. I'll take Minnesota at home on Monday Night Football over Justin Fields and the Bears.
Yep, I agree with that. I think Josh Dobbs is going to have a pretty decent day, and Chicago is on their way to the number 1 overall pick.
But although they're on the way with Carolina's pick, which is fun. They're going to have 2 top 5 picks. But hey, let's go Vikings. We want that second rounder to be higher for the old Mandos in exchange for Montez Sweat. All right, that is the picks, / those are the picks. We'll see how we did on Monday. When we get back, more analysis of Commanders and Cowboys from the one and only Logan Paulson. Take command Wednesday for Not My Beat next on The Hoffman Show. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope that you are having a great Wednesday afternoon. Of course, here we are on the day before Thanksgiving. We got plenty of great stuff coming up this hour, including Never Read the Comments at 5:30. Another busy week on the YouTubes. So we'll gather all the best comments and react to them coming up at 5:30. Dave Johnson at 6:15. We'll do a pick 6 at 6 o'clock as well. But right now it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not My Beat.
Today, some analysis of Commanders and Cowboys in the form of Take Command. This Dallas defense presents a potential nightmare for the Commanders. So how do they prepare for it, especially on a short week? And how can they crack the code to be successful? Logan Paulson and I discussed this morning. And without further ado, here we go on a Take Command Wednesday. Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson. Don't miss the Take Command pregame show. Not with us on Thursday. Our guy Denton Day has you covered before the game on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. All right, speaking of the offense, Logan, they are going to have to put up some points to keep up with the Dallas offense. So what's the plan? Like, EB's got his hands full with Micah Parsons in this line. You know, they marry the rush, their coverage really well. They got playmakers on the back end. This is a dangerous Dallas defense that is, I feel like, is a pretty nightmarish unit to try to prepare for on a short week.
Yeah, definitely. When you watch them, man, they do a lot of stuff defensively that's fun. You know, they have they play a lot of this. I think Dan Quinn has kind of got this reputation of playing a lot of cover 3. You know, when you watch them, they play a lot of match. They play a lot of 2. They're just like a confident secondary, understanding how to disguise stuff. They're aggressive to the football. You can tell that's something they prioritize. When I was with Dan in Atlanta, that was something that was at every meeting. We're talking about the football. We're talking about getting the football out. The football is live. And you can tell that's how they think about it, right? DBs are aggressive to the football. They're taking advantages. They've got 3 or 4 safeties that they kind of bring in that can be like your Buffalo nickel or your dime kind of linebackers, and they're all big and fast and physical. They match up well with tight ends, and there's just a lot of team speed there. And they really, to get that done, they really rely on they must have an excellent defensive backs coach. I think it's Al Harris, former Green Bay, Seattle, wherever he was at before. And he's doing a great job with them, and they're just locked in. Like, there's clips where you're watching and you're like, they know this concept. They knew this was coming somehow, and they've matched it really well, and they're just playing really confident. It's kind of almost, to a certain extent, the inverse of some stuff you see here in Washington with the Commanders. Like, you just, instead of here, how when you watch St. Juice and he's kind of in between on something, there's very little in between or indecisiveness with this group. And so kudos to them. They do a great job. And then I think you get to the front, and the front is incredibly fun to watch. And that's Dan Quinn's baby. He spends a lot of time with them, and they're awesome, man. The way they run their line stunts, the way they find ways to isolate Micah Parsons, the way they move him around the formation, the way that they've accrued probably 6 to 7 just good pass rushers, guys who understand the vision, and they just let those guys go. Like, there's times here in Washington where you're watching the rush, or other teams in the league, where you can tell that they're kind of worried about a quarterback scrambling or a quarterback doing this, and the guys are in a more conservative rush approach. And that's just not the case ever with them. They are just like, we are getting after the quarterback 24/7, 365. And it's a fun defense to watch because of that. And so what I would say is the things you're contending with are, can you beat man-to-man coverage? I think this group of receivers has shown an ability to do that. And can you handle the protection? And it's going to be so it kind of feels like, I was trying to think of a good analogy. It feels like if the Giants defense and the Bills defense had like a baby. This feels. Yeah. Like, they're really good.
Take your 2 worst games, combine them together, and happy birthday, Sam Howell. I don't think it's actually Sam's birthday, but happy Thanksgiving, Sam Howell.
Happy Thanksgiving, Sam Howell.
Simpler version of the joke. Come on, Hoffman, wake up.
And so obviously they, in the back end, they kind of play like Buffalo, where they take a little bit of chance. They're really aggressive to attack the ball. They play, like, I don't want to say outside of scheme, but there's risk where it's like, oh, this is cover 2, and this guy is supposed to carry this vertical a little bit, but his eyes are on the quarterback. He breaks and makes interceptions. That's what happened versus the Jets for one of their turnovers. They're like second in the NFL, or second or fifth, I don't remember exactly, but they have a very high turnover rate. They're number 1 in pressures in the NFL. Like, it's a fun group to watch. So in terms of prepping, so I mentioned the back end very similar to Buffalo. The front is very similar to the Giants, not in that they bring a ton of pressure. They do bring a lot of 5-man rushes, but they also, one of the things about them is they have this relentlessness that the Giants have too. And they move and they stunt, and they are aggressive to those stunts. And the stunts make it very difficult for the quarterback to escape the pocket, while also creating a lot of pressure at the same time. And then obviously number 11 is, kind of in that, he's one of the best defensive players in the division. Like, him and Dexter Lawrence are neck and neck. You look at what Dexter Lawrence did to us last week, like, it's probably going to be worse here with Micah Parsons, because they give him they have more flexibility with him. They just move him around so much more. Like, I
feel like Parsons is going to play a game where it's like, how many different O linemen can I get a sack against?
Correct. Yeah. Like the thing, like, I watched the New York Jets game, and he's playing over the center, and they've got a 5-man front. So they got to go money. He's got a 1-on-1, right? So, like, that's a tough matchup for them. So what's the plan? I would probably go full slide there. So some type of what I would call like an R or L, or a Ron or Lou, where you're getting you're basically manning with you're not manning with anybody, but in a 5-man front, the tackle would block the 4-eye, and everyone kind of blocks down. So you get a double team on that. And then you got a 1-on-1 with the back, or a tight end on an edge player, which is tough because every one of their guys has pass rush juice.
Especially if that edge player is DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, good luck.
That's
He's
exactly
another 10 sack guy.
And so you see, even in that conversation, you see some of the issues here that they present. And then, so he's over the center against the Jets, and now versus Philly, he's playing off-ball linebacker and on pass rushing downs. And he's not actually playing off-ball linebacker, but he's lined up in a way where you, as an offensive line, have to target this man and get the protection working toward him. And he still ends up getting a sack because he stunts. Like, they loop the 3 technique, he runs in the A gap, and he ends up getting a pressure. So he is explosive, he's fast, he's strong. And I think one of the things that's unique about him is he's not overly polished as a pass rusher, but he's just like one of those athletes. He's 6'1", he runs a 4.3, he's 255 pounds, he's got good bend. And like, it's not like when you watch Nick Bosa, for example, there's like this really technical, nuanced, his hips are moving, his hands, everything's kind of working in conjunction. And then Micah Parsons is just an animal. Like, he is just like a Tasmanian devil. And so,
like, when you're that fast and that powerful, you don't need anything but speed and power. Like, you don't need moves. You don't need a spin move. You don't need a hump move. You don't need whatever. It's, I'm going to violently push your hands away and run around you, and the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and I'm going to figure out how to straight line to the quarterback. It is nuts watching him pass rush.
Yeah. So you're going to have to come up with some stuff, man. You're going to have to, and people say, well, how do you handle the games? Obviously, the Commanders struggled a little bit with the games last week, so I think you're going to see a lot of those same ones just rinsed and repeat. And I would say, like, the best teams that I played for that handled stunts well would rep it. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's like, here's this stunt. How do we move? How do we pass this off? What's the communication? Here's the next stunt. Here's the next stunt. And you would just do it ad nauseum until it was muscle memory, until you got used to the fact that 11's on my outside shoulder and he drops out, I can squeeze back inside. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just was like this, you become like a robot. The whole unit becomes a robot, and that takes time. And unfortunately,
they don't have
a short week, not a lot of time. So,
no.
Then I think you kind of get into EB, and what does he do? I think screens are live versus this team. I think running the ball is going to be big just because of what it does to shorten the game. But those are some things to kind of keep an eye out for.
So first, a pop quiz. Who has more interceptions this year, the Washington Commanders or Deron Bland?
Deron Bland, I believe, right? Or is it close?
It is actually as close as it could get. They are tied with 6. So you talk about guys that are making plays on the back end. Bland has been incredible. You got to know where he is. You got to know where a bunch of guys are. Like, you got to be very clean in your vision against this team. As for what you're just talking about, though, what EB's got to do. One, I think you got to run the ball this week. And, like, I'm not going to put a cap on it. I'm not going to say, like, hey, find the balance. Like, you got to protect the football. And that's going to involve not exposing Sam to hits, to pressures, and to the ability to make young guy mistakes. And we haven't said that a lot this year, where Sam, you kind of trust him to do a lot of stuff, but against this defense on a short week, like, I'd be kind of terrified. I am kind of terrified. Now, my job is not to get Sam ready. My job is to talk about it. But if I was EB, I'd be extra terrified because that is my job. And so kind of with that in mind, I think, running the ball obviously becomes important. And Dallas has given up like over 100 yards a game. They're kind of middle of the pack as a rush defense, 109 yards a game. You can run on them a little bit. And you ran it really well last week if you're Washington. You were great in that aspect. From a productivity standpoint, you just got to hold on to the football at the end of the carries. So that would be one thing I would do. And then the other thing I would do is I would move the pocket a ton. Like, yeah. And you can talk about this way better than I can, but if you want to eliminate some of those stunts and games and protection issues and having a block in a phone booth one-on-one against a guy like Micah Parsons, like, run away from him. And Sam's really good at throwing on the run. He can run it himself if he gets in a bad spot. He's actually had pretty good decision-making in those types of plays. Like, I don't want to say I wouldn't ever drop back, but I would basically never drop back. Like, I am always mixing it up, doing something a little bit different to try to simplify this game plan and call it in a way that I've got stuff that's already in all season long. I'm just going to use that bag of tricks as much as I possibly can.
And I think that's a really good point. It's like you gotta. To me, this is like a a Greg Maddux pitcher. You know what I mean? Like, Greg Maddux doesn't have that like crazy fastball, but he's got the knuckleball. He's got the slider. He's got some pitches in there that kind of throw you off a little bit. And so I think that's what
backdoor two-seamer looks like it's going to hit you, and then all of a sudden it's a strike.
Exactly right. And I don't know. Obviously, I don't know a lot about baseball, but I do know that good pitchers who don't have that elite fastball, they have to change it up. And I think that's ultimately what you're trying to do here. Is you're just trying to, every down, give them something a little bit different to think about. I coach some pass rushers around the NFL. Like, the quick game's huge because it doesn't let them get into their rush. Moving the pocket's huge, and because it's just so much of what you're coaching with a pass rusher is the line to the quarterback. And if I know where the line is, if I know, hey, he's going to be at 7.5 yards this play, it's really hard for the offensive line to block that up, especially when you got a guy like Micah Parsons. So can I get a little bit of doubt in there? Can I put a tight end in a tight split and give him a chip look? Or can I line a tight end up over his head? And he says, well, I actually have to play the run if they run the ball here, right? And get in routes that way. There's a lot of little nuanced things you can do to augment that. And I think you got to reach into every bag, every trick you've got, and put it on the table.
They've chipped really well recently. Yep. Like, that could be a thing. You mentioned the screen game. I think that's going to be big this weekend. Like, it's all got to be on the table. And then my question would be, like, can they use some of that stuff to generate the big shots? Because that's what's been missing from this offense as of late. And obviously you got to be careful because those DBs are ball hawks back there. But, like, can you run the ball, run screens, run this, run that in a way to eventually generate a big play down the field?
Yeah, and I think the one thing I think that's a great point. And to kind of just elaborate on that, one thing I would say is that defensive backfield, they know their rush is really good. You can tell. And they play that way. And so if you can somehow augment that a little bit, like get the relationship off, there are big plays because they're so used to having it, 2.5 seconds, balls out, 2.5 seconds. And so they take chances around that time parameter. And so if you can say, hey, we can get this out to 3.5 seconds, or Sam can extend this play, there will be open guys and you will find big plays, kind of like you did in Seattle, right? Where you get out of the pocket. But the problem is you got to be a little bit more creative about how you get to that stuff, because on third down, it's not like the stunts the Giants were doing where it's a 4-man rush. They're kind of stunting around. It's like, this is a 5-man rush. They're stunting to kind of create a bubble and ensure that the rush can get home. They really don't want you escaping the pocket. And so they do a really good job of moving the interior guys specifically to making sure that there aren't any gaps to like step up in or vacate to the right or vacate to the left. So you're going to have to be a little bit more creative, I think, this week about, like you said, like what's on the table: keepers, rollouts, quick game, screens. Let's get in different formations. Like, all that stuff has got to be in the Rolodex, and you got to feel very comfortable with it. One of the issues is that you're on a short week, so how much new stuff that you can add.
Right.
But your point, we've seen that stuff. I mean, against the
You're
Giants,
in week 12. Like it's in there somewhere.
Yeah. So just kind of bring it up to the forefront. And against the Giants, they did a lot of that stuff early, which I liked. And unfortunately, game flow kind of got them out of some of that stuff late. But if you can manage game flow, protect the football, I think, and find those explosive plays. Like, think about if they're able to hit a post early, like against the Giants, for example. Like, that game's completely different. The Giants game would be completely different. And I think it's going to be a lot of work for EB, going to be a lot of work for Sam, going to be a lot of work for the O-line. Because I do think the guys on the outside can win one-on-ones, just about making sure you can protect it to get the ball there.
Yeah. Is there anything, I know it's a different offense, anything they can take out of what they did to Dallas with Sam last year?
I think one of the things
outside of just the confidence that he's done it.
Well, that game to me is such an outlier. I actually went back and watched it, and I just remember the game flow in that.
Yeah, he threw it 19 times in the game, which is hilarious now because that's like a quarter for him.
Yeah, was crazy because it was like they muffed a punt on the 15-yard line. They scored the next play. They dropped the punter dropped the ball on a punt and then punted it. It was just like everything went right for them in that game to have good offensive production. I think the one thing that I would kind of just look at was Terry's a beast. If you can get the ball vertical and get him protected, like take some shots that way, see if you can soften him up. I think there's a lot of validity to that. And then kind of run your base offense, because I think the base offense is good, but you're going to have to put a little bit of wrinkle on it. Because like I said, they do a really good job of matching patterns. They kind of understand what you want to do in certain situations. They're really well coached. And so, EB, how can you put a little salt or pepper on that sucker and make it look like something else, then run something different to find those opportunities for those guys to make some plays?
All right, that from Take Command, which is available in full now. Thoughts on the other side of the ball, and also a discussion about what's at stake in this game. Is Ron Rivera's job really on the line? Logan and I tackle that to start Take Command, which is available now. Obviously, we'd love you to keep listening to the radio show, but if you're driving around a ton, running errands, picking up family, going to Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving, whatever it is over the next day before this game kicks off tomorrow, know that there is a Take Command waiting for you in your favorite podcast app. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it's time to talk a little turkey before we get to Never Read the Comments. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Never read the comments, coming up in about 5 minutes. Quickly, though, Michael, as Mike is in for Ant today, very important question. How do you like your turkey? / are you a turkey guy on Thanksgiving?
As I get older, I kind of don't like the turkey as much as I did back in the day. I'm more of a honey ham kind of guy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's silly. But turkey, I fried. It's very rare, but if you get a fried turkey,
That's the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up on the fried turkeys. My dad used to do the fried turkey. Like, we got a deep fryer probably when I was, like, middle school. And, you know, we didn't use it any time of year but Thanksgiving. And it was always great because you deep fry the turkey, and then he'd do, like, a couple of chickens. And then you just have, like, great fried meat because, like, we'd freeze the chicken. And when you got sick of Thanksgiving leftovers, you just, like, take out one of the chickens, and you got a really well-cooked chicken. It's just waiting for you. So that was always great. And I definitely miss it now. Like, my wife's going to do a baked turkey because we don't have a deep fryer. And it'll be delicious. It'll be good. It'll be lathered in butter and all the good stuff. But I think deep fried is definitely the way to go. And it's funny because, like, I think the best thing about turkey is it's a great vessel for the other stuff that you put on it. Like, you just
1,000%.
Like, it is, people are like, oh, it's so dry. I'm like, all you're going to do is put, like, one, I actually agree with the hot take that Mitch Tischler had earlier today. That's actually not a hot take. I think it's a correct take. Mitch said, if you want to know if someone's mom was a good cook, ask if they like turkey. Because if they say, no, it's gross and dry, it just means your mom didn't know how to cook a turkey. And I kind of think that's true. Even if it's baked, which is not, I prefer the fried. The fried is better. But even if it's baked, then you should be able to get it right. If you know the right temperatures, if you know how to either brine or use the right amount of fats in the cooking, like, it's very easy to make as to be good on its own, but an amazing vessel for gravy and or cranberry sauce.
Now, Craig, have you ever had a smoked turkey?
I have. Smoked turkey has to be done well. Like, smoke is dangerous because if you over smoke, it's disgusting. If you nail it, it's kind of hard to beat. But, like, the margin of error on smoking something versus deep frying it versus baking it, I feel like you're really, you know, going thin line there.
Yeah, you're pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. What about you? Are you like a smoked turkey?
Well, no, I was just wondering because I've never had a smoked turkey, but I feel like it would be good. But fried for sure is the one seed.
Yeah, I mean, turkeys, like, some things that are bland are actually great because it allows other flavors to sink. Like, some things are great when they're not because the flavor of them is what carries it. Something like a turkey or a potato, right? Again, if you don't like mashed potatoes, it's because you haven't had good mashed potatoes. You haven't had someone who knows what salty, you know, what salt is, what butter is, like how to actually make those things taste great. They're relatively bland flavors on their own, but they really are great vessels for other flavors and carry it out, and the texture is right and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm getting super food nerdy. I watch way too many food shows. Point is, Thanksgiving's great. I think we should eat Thanksgiving food more often. Maybe not as much as we do on Thanksgiving. Can't be gluttonous all the time. But enjoy your food. Remember, food is nourishment for your body. It is not something that should be restricted or punishable, and there's no food that is good or bad. I mean, it can taste good or bad, but food does not have morality. So enjoy your freaking plates tomorrow, and we hope you have a great Thanksgiving. As for the actual sports radioing that we are going to do, I wish we had a time to do like a full. We could have done a pick six of Thanksgiving foods. Alas, we just don't have time today because the Commanders are playing tomorrow. All the usual Thanksgiving nonsense we don't have time for. We have football to talk about. But we do have time for Never Read the Comments. And so we are diving into the YouTube comments next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope you're having a great Thanksgiving week. Your travels are easy, your food will be delicious, your family won't be annoying, and your friends will be great. That is my wishes to all of you here on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. But it is a Wednesday, and so as much as this is a time for gratitude and lightness and just feeling good, we had to do it. We've got to dive in to the comments.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Yeah! Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, here we go on a Wednesday, deep into the comments. These from my page, at Craig Hoffman on YouTube. You can subscribe to get highlights of this show, highlights of Take Command, occasionally some digital exclusives as well. So make sure you're subscribed at Craig Hoffman. We also post highlights of the show at the Team 980 and full episodes of Take Command at 1067 The Fan. We have Michael Phillips on, as we do each and every Monday. And Michael talked about his plan for Ron Rivera, which is keep him. Why? Because he's bad, at least for the rest of the season. Because, as Michael said, you are closer to the number 1 overall pick than you are the playoffs. Jaleel Lewis, 5982, says, I like the Phillips plan. Firing Ron at this point serves no purpose. We're not making the playoffs, so we should be looking to the future with draft picks and the further development of Sam Howell. Also, continue to develop the offense with EB. Many fans seem to forget that the offensive line is mediocre. EB is also learning as the season goes on. Remember, he's never called plays on his own. To me, at least, like, I agree with Jaleel's comment. I don't know whether Jaleel would agree with me and what I'm about to say and where I'm going to take this, but I agree with that while also saying that it doesn't mean that you have to keep EB moving forward. Like, you just don't. And we're going to circle back to that thought in a second. But for the next 5-6 weeks, like, the best thing you can do is to continue developing Sam. Whether you keep Eric or not, use him while he's here. He's very smart. He is obviously hopefully he's getting better at this play calling thing. He's never done this before. So taking time away from him to do the stuff you need to do to be a head coach, all the administrative stuff, overseeing the defense, being quality control, kind of checking in on all the meetings. He needs the time to focus. And if nothing else, what Ron is doing right now is making sure that Eric Bieniemy can focus his time on Sam Howell and the offense. And that is important and good. And whether even if you change coordinators next year, chances are it's going to be a similar West Coast style system. So the more that you get out of EB while he's here, the better. Or he's your coordinator next year or your head coach next year. And these weeks become really valuable practice time. So let him focus on this stuff now in the granular detail. And whether he's doing it next year, whether he's a level up next year, or whether someone else is here, you would have maximized EB's time here. Yeah, it's not great. It's not good. But just because people have done a job that deserves to be fired, when you have such a clean endpoint of an end of a season, like, this isn't a corporate business that we're like, you know, I guess this might happen in certain businesses where it's like, hey, we'll fire him at the end of the quarter, right? Like, that's kind of what's happening here. There's a deadline. There's an endpoint. You get to fully start over next year. So, and you can't get the replacement that you'd want right now. So just let it keep going. Jay Paladin, big old long username, says, I watched Philly be able to get the ball to their best receiver, A.J. Brown, in almost every game. 8 or more times per game, except for Monday night against Kansas City. But then their number 2 receiver, Devontae Smith, turned up big. EB seems to not have identified his most dangerous weapon and get him the football. This is EB's biggest flaw. I agree with this. This is something that I think is my frustration and why, like, as I look around the league at the coordinators that I would want, why I would lean other directions based off the track records. Like, EB was great at getting Travis Kelce the ball in Kansas City, but this is a very tight end heavy offense. And so, like, could you theoretically next year draft some stud tight end in the first round and want to keep Bieniemy and, you know, run it up that way, I guess. But they built an offense that didn't adapt to the personnel. The fact that you have running backs and wide receivers as your best players as skill position guys. Like Logan Thomas is a fine football player, but he's not as explosive or potent or touchdown worthy as, or not worthy, but touchdown dangerous as Terry, Jahan, Curtis, Gibson, Rodriguez, obviously Robinson. Like, why is your offense running like this? And so I think it just frustrates me when I look at Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit constantly get 8 to 10 targets a game. Justin Jefferson get 15 a game in Minnesota. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, whoever the top guy is for LA, they get him the ball. And it just seems to be a philosophical thing that for EB and this Andy Reid system, like the system is the system. And it will create openings for someone, and we want to have good players all around and hope that that's that. Where other teams say, hey, if we have a special talent, or whoever our most special talent is, we're going to skew the offense towards them. I mean, I know Sean thought like that when he was here. Like, so this goes back. This isn't like, oh, I got Cooper Kupp, I got to figure it out. No, when he was here, Sean had a special box on his play sheet of plays that were designed for Jordan Reed. And every once in a while, I'd be like, I got to get an 86 play in here. Because Jordan was his best player. It didn't have to do with the fact that he was a tight end. Often those plays were getting him split out at wide receiver. But it's philosophical. We've got to get our best guys the ball. And because that's not how this offense is run, it's not how that's a choice for me. That's not me saying like I'm 100% right and EB doesn't know what he's doing. Absolutely not. Way too much respect for Eric for that. But philosophically, I disagree with how the offense is designed. And I see it as a flaw. But I'm a guy on the radio. IRJ7191 says, it's amazing how reporters say why or how there's no one to take over if Ron is fired. First of all, Ron has been terrible at his job for the last 3+ years, and who keeps their job while underperforming? He should have been fired last year if it wasn't for the owner change. Well, yeah, and he probably would have, which is why I screamed bloody murder a couple of times a month as all this stuff was happening, that the NFL was screwing over the Commanders. And I can't believe that it didn't become a larger talking point. I can't believe more people didn't start echoing me. I can't believe that it's still not something when fans are directing their ire in a million different places. Dan Snyder hired Bank of America last November. Why didn't the NFL's lack of cojones, I hope I can say that even though it's in another language. Michael, we don't need to dump that, do we? I think we're good.
I think we're all right.
Okay, good. So their lack of chutzpah, I'll use that. I'll use the Yiddish. Their lack of chutzpah in pushing Dan out and being like, oh, we don't want to make him mad. He might stay. Why couldn't Roger Goodell do what Adam Silver did with what's-his-face, with Donald Sterling? Adam Silver was like, we have a problem. I can't technically vote him out, but I'm going to ban him for life, and I'm going to force this sale. And if they had done that, would Tanya Snyder have been like, okay, well, it's my team now, and I want the hell out of here. Let's get this done. Like, it was a joke that it dragged off as long as it did, and it cost the Commanders this season. And it's just the reality of the situation. But that doesn't mean that Ron should get fired right now if it's not what's best for the team right now. Again, you can't replace him. The only way to replace him is to hire someone who doesn't have a job right now. All the people you want to hire currently are assistants other places. And by the way, unfortunately, that's also true for the general manager. If you want the assistant GM in Detroit, San Francisco, Houston, Philly, wherever it is, you can't get that guy because he's not leaving mid-season. Now, would I potentially fire Mayhew to send a message to show the fans that I have a pulse? Yeah, because I don't care about having a general manager this time of year. I'm sorry, I just don't. My scouts are out scouting. It is what it is. And if the GM is not going to be drafting or signing free agents, like I'm not really that interested in his opinion. So I'm good without a GM for the final 6 weeks of the season. I don't know exactly what he's doing this time. Like he's scouting, but if he's not going to be using that information, then okay. He doesn't have any games to coach. You can't do that with a coach. And so rather than screwing over the team by elevating a bunch of people that don't belong in those positions, because you have to elevate everybody. You fire Jack and put Steve Russ, the linebackers coach, as DC. Some assistant linebackers coach that probably isn't ready to be a linebackers coach has got to do that job. And everyone just gets worse. This isn't a good staff. So you just stick with what it is. It's not good. And also, frankly, there's a financial component. You don't have to give anybody a raise. You just eat it. There's no benefit the rest of the season unless things get super toxic or he completely loses the locker room, because you do want to land the plane safely, if you will. Skins for Life says, I've been a lifelong fan, 41 years old, and I'm tired of watching this franchise stink it up. But let's look at the facts. We're sitting at $89 million in cap space in the offseason, along with about 20 unrestricted free agent players who should all be replaced. If we then release Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel, and Charles Leno, we'd have an additional $14 million in cap savings. We should have a top 5 pick in all rounds, should we keep on the track we're on. That's potentially 3 picks in the top 37 or so. We have a chance to do a full turnover and rebuild all in one offseason. Please speak on the opportunity we have to complete a rebuild in one offseason. That would be an interesting video. I have talked about this some. I'll expand on it a little bit more, and obviously as we go, we can talk more about this in a full segment form here on the radio show. We chop that up. That becomes a video on YouTube. That's how this works. I think the Chargers' job is as good as this one, depending on if you like Hal or not. They just committed a ton of money to Herbert. They're very likely going to fire Brandon Staley. You have way more flexibility here, but they have Justin Herbert. And so depending on how close you think Hal and Herbert are and what kind of flexibility you want, I can make an argument this is a better job. I can certainly make an argument that this is better ownership. I know Gruden was on the other day, one of the shows, and he said that one, and there was one other, Chicago, he thinks is also a better job, potentially because he really likes Caleb Williams, and it looks like the Bears are going to get the number 1 pick from Carolina a year after they traded away the number 1 pick to Carolina in exchange for this year's first, which is going to wind up being number 1 overall in a better draft. Whoopsie, Carolina Panthers. And if you like Caleb Williams, then yeah, you have a ton of cap space, but their roster is not any good. And the history of Bears football is not very good. Not that the recent history of Washington football is not very good, or is great, but you do have a new owner who I think is really smart and will support you in the right ways here. And so I think this is going to be one of the best jobs. And if I was like a Ben Johnson in Detroit, I'd be all over this place. It's going to be really tempting to go Coach Herbert. Yeah, if you love Caleb Williams, the way Jay said it, he's like, you're going to get to go to the Hall of Fame because you get to coach that guy for 20 years. And it's like, one, it really works out that way, but I get it. This guy's theoretically a generational prospect. I look at what you got here. You got some really good players, John, Duran, Terry, Brian Robinson, Sam Cosmi's an intriguing young player. I just think a lot of these guys, and we'll touch on this a little later, are poorly coached. So if you feel like you can bring in a better staff and maximize this roster, and you can spend money on a veteran left tackle, and you can get the best skill player or the best edge rusher or a great young stud tight end, you have the cap space and the draft capital to do all of these things. The one thing about a 1-year turnaround, and I've said, I think they can turn it around next year and be super competitive if Sam is what a lot of us think he is, which is pretty good. The one thing is, how quickly can you install your stuff? And scheme matters a lot, and it is hard to get people on the same page quickly. Look at Sean Payton in Denver, right? They're terrible the first half of the season. Not that I think they have a great roster out there, but they are terrible. And all of a sudden, some of the things that they're teaching and coaching start to click, and they're 5-5. Brian Flores, beginning of the season, really bad, that Minnesota defense, just like it was last year. Things start to click as the season goes. So what's going to be that loading ramp for Washington next season with a new staff? It can be shortened, potentially, if you can keep some similar concepts, and if there's carryover, obviously you're going to coach it a lot better. And that detail is going to be really important. But from a personnel standpoint, oh my God, so much potential to turn things around quickly here. And I think they're going to get a really good coach because of it. Which brings us to Off to Another World 7334 here on Never Read the Comments. We always hear about coaches bringing out the best in players. How many times have we had absolute dogs that, quote-unquote, couldn't play in the system? I actually think that there are some dogs being held back by a stubborn, old, archaic coaching staff. I agree with this. I don't know that I'd use that terminology, but, I mean, the example I've been touching on a little bit more this week is the secondary. Like, Cam Curl was on a really nice trajectory. Benjamin St. Juste was on an excellent trajectory. And those guys have regressed this year. What's happened? Chris Harris left. The best defensive coach they probably had. That's why he was sought after. You know, the receivers have not had a great year. And some of it is the offense and how it's designed. But, like, Drew Terrell was a hot, young wide receivers coach. Went out to Arizona. That gets replaced by Bobby Ingram, who's been around a long time and, you know, seems to be a pretty decent NFL coach. But, like, Drew Terrell was pretty special as a coach, and you saw Terry's maturation underneath him. You saw how productive Jahan was as a rookie. Like, that would have been nice to keep. And unfortunately, like, the position coaching matters a lot. I don't think the O-line coaching has been fantastic the last couple of years. Like, Matt Sco was a really good coach in some areas, but struggled in some others. You know, Travell Wharton has had a terrible year, like his personal health, and it has pulled him away at times. So that's been really hard for a young guy like Sam Cosmi to develop and have that consistency, especially in year one in a new position. Like, what happens if you can get some dogs on staff? Like, not just dogs as players, dogs on staff that are excellent at what they do. I think you can make this roster look a lot better, again, as we talked about in the last answer, with adding a lot of personnel, but also taking what you have and sharpening it to its maximum potential. That position coaching matters a lot in this league because it's how you get those fine details that lead to mega production. Shannon Wilson, 6216, commenting on Overreaction Tuesday with Linnell, said, I'm going to have to agree with Craig and Linnell. There aren't, and this was on Linnell's take that there aren't any blue chippers on the Commanders. I said I would count Terry, John, Duran still, even if they haven't had great seasons. Like, I would not be looking to get rid of them. But she said, I'm going to have to agree with Craig and Linnell. There aren't any other than two, maybe three that are blue chip players and would go to another team and start for that matter. I think that's probably a little low if that is your threshold. But as blah, blah, 0007 says, and again, I messed this up. Blah-de-blah, 0007. Gotta respect the YouTubers. Blah-de-blah, 0007. Zero blue chip game changer players for decades. It's almost unreal. They can't even stumble into one. And that is, I think, by the definition that Noddle 1 uses. Commanders have zero, quote-unquote, blue chip players. Blue chip would be Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, TJ Watt, Aaron Donald. None on this team in that category. Allison on that as well. Terry, John, Duran are very good, top 15, not great players. I'd agree with all that. Like, they've got guys who are bona fide starters. Like, I know that, like, I'm going to pick someone on purpose that is going to make a lot of you mad. Charles Leno is a starter on half the teams in the league. Sam Cosmi is a starter on 20 teams in the league. Like, that doesn't mean he's a good starter. It doesn't mean he's excellent. But, like, Sam Cosmi's a solid football player. Charles Leno, even though he has his flaws, like, when his good is really good, his win rates are super high. It's been blown by in some pretty key spots, less than ideal, but he starts for most teams. You know, your receivers are starting most places. I mean, running back's a crapshoot, but, like, B-Rob's a starting caliber. It's not like he shouldn't be starting. Upgrading on him, unless you're going to get a true, like, top-line guy, would be hard. He's better than most backs in the league. And by the way, his yards per rush and all that stuff would tell you that. Defensively, like, Jamin's better than people think. He'd start on a lot of teams at that weak side linebacker. Your two tackles, obviously, Cam. Like, Defoe's okay. Kendall's a starter. BSJ's like a second corner on a lot of teams. So you're talking about guys that I think are solid. Like, you have an average-ish roster, but they're not well coached, and you have a lot of guys that are overextended. You have a lot of guys that are asked to do things that they're not good at, and I think that is the part of the problem with this team is, like, BSJ is a good football player. He's not a great football player. So quit asking him to be a number one corner. And this is where a guy like Forbes, you hope was better sooner, but you took that risk of the high upside guy over the guy that might have been ready right now, a la Deonte Banks. So these are calculations that they made that might have long-term positive repercussions, but this is a problem Rivera era long. Right? They draft Jamin in the first round. And it's not that Jamin Davis couldn't become a good football player, because, by the way, he has. But you keep asking him to do stuff that he's not good at, and you ask him to do way too much too soon. And so the narrative on him and his confidence isn't exactly great. I see this comment from Jim McGee, 5583, who uses a term that I like. He says, my foundational guys are Cosme, Payne, Allen, Robinson, Terry, Tress, and dare I say it, Howe. I would add Forrest, maybe. He's still on his rookie deal. Like, Cam's a funky one because I like Cam a lot. Just depends on how much you're going to pay him. I think Quan's still going to be a good football player. I think Forbes could wind up being a good football player. I think Jamin, depending on how much he costs, like, he's worth keeping. He's... Again, like, as a run player, he's turned into a really good player. And in coverage, he's not bad. The problem is he keeps getting stuck in terrible matchups in bad situations with suboptimal calls or suboptimal help or, some of these things that are exposing him to things that he shouldn't be exposed to. But every other linebacker in the league, basically not named Fred Warner, would have the same problems. So someone's got to play it. I would take Jamin. But in terms of foundational guys, and this whole blue chip conversation, I think, becomes interesting because of this. Like, just because you don't have blue chippers doesn't mean you don't have good players or useful players. You shouldn't be looking to trade everyone. And that's what some of the comments became, and I think that's ridiculous. You're not looking to trade everyone. Like, sure, if someone wants to give you something that's better than what you have, which if you have a okay player that someone wants to give you a third or second round pick for, come on, send them down. But the whole point of, like, even if someone gives you a first for John Allen, when you have $90 million in cap space, the whole point of a first round pick is to get someone as good as John Allen. You need players to play. And they have guys that can do that. I think they need to be much better coached, taught better, put in better positions, have a better global understanding of kind of what you're trying to accomplish in order to ultimately succeed and hopefully succeed quickly next year. Never read the comments. Continuing quickly on the Hoffman Show, about 2 more minutes here, and then we will get to our pick 6 at the top of the hour, rapid fire style. One off the wall question that I think is good, and then a couple of funny ones to wrap up. James Taylor 6051 says, how would you feel about Dan Quinn as a potential candidate for head coach? Of course, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, who the old Mandos will see Thursday night. I don't hate it, but I certainly don't love it. I don't think I like it. Here's the problem with a guy like Dan Quinn as your head coach. You get what happened in Atlanta, right? Very good head coach. Your defense is going to be solid. Like, it's got a high floor because Dan Quinn's your head coach. But you get Kyle Shanahan as your offensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan leads Matt Ryan to an MVP season. You go to the Super Bowl. You should have won the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan gets hired as a head coach. Now you have to bring in Steve Sarkisian. Your offense isn't as good. There's a fall off. Eventually you fire Sark, and I think that might have been when Dan got fired as well. So with a defensive head coach in the current NFL, and especially if Sam's your guy or you're drafting someone. So either way, you're going to have a young quarterback, and you want that quarterback to have a really good rapport with his main offensive coach. And so if you hire Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Brian Johnson, the QB coach, now OC in Philly, pick your other offensive guy. You know that guy's not going to get hired away from you. Where if you hire Dan Quinn, and we brought and not that I'm at all remotely interested in Belichick, but I brought this up with Belichick too. If you have a good year with an OC and a defensive head coach, that OC is getting look somewhere else. I mean, to an extent, this happened with Jay. Like, Jay was the main guy, but like Sean was kind of the guy, right? And they hired Kevin, and then obviously things going sideways that 2019 year. But like, your good OCs get other jobs. So just hire the good OC for your head coach. Philosophically, that's where I'm at. I think if you're going to hire a defensive head coach, you can't do much better than Dan Quinn. He's got the head coaching experience. He's excellent at what he does. He knows the division really well. Logan played for him and absolutely loved him. He treats players really well. Guys like him, but like also respect him. Love Dan Quinn. If you want to go the defensive head coach route, I am not interested in going the defensive head coach route. Last but not least, actually, I'll just go one funny one. We had a couple funny comments on my Ron Rivera rant the other day, and how would he utter the Steve Spurrier 5 and 11 thing. We had a funny one about Tommy DeVito and his grandma's ragu sauce. Compliments to my wife on her fake Travis Kelce tweets. We have all kinds of good stuff on YouTube right now from the past week. But Mike, so we moved a couple weeks ago. So the look of this, my home studio, has changed, obviously. And I have the mic set up a little bit differently, and the background's a little different, and the lights are set up a little bit differently. And are you an Xbox or a PS5 guy?
Microsoft all the way. Got an Xbox.
All right. Do you ever play 2K?
Oh, yeah.
So Tamarino, 968 says, with the combo of Craig's lights and camera, he looks like an NBA 2K reporter on my team.
I can see it. That camera quality is silly, though.
It's a good camera. Thanks, Logitech. Y'all want to sponsor the show? The next mention's not free. But yeah, did some upgrading. What can I say? I got a good setup. Feels comfortable. I did have to flip the mic though. For a while, the mic was coming up and then down, and then it was creating this nasty shadow on my face. And now we flipped it. The mic comes up. Voila. I can kind of make shadows on the wall behind me though. That's fun. Let's see. Have fun with that at a later date. Anyway, let's never read the comments. You leave your comments on YouTube at Craig Hoffman at the Team 980. Make sure you are subscribed so that you do not miss the best of this here radio show. And of course, we stream the entire show live on the Team 980's YouTube page every day from 4 until 7, except for the days where we don't go all the way to 7, like tonight. We're done at 6:45. Wizards basketball on the Team 980, which means Dave Johnson joins us at 6:15. But our pick 6 is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Clinton Yates, by the way, sends his best to everyone, and a happy Thanksgiving. Normally he joins us on a Wednesday, but he's traveling to where he's going. And with the short week and everything we got to do, he's going to skip this week, and we'll have Clinton back on the show for his usual Wednesday visit next week. We're going to have to go very quick here, but we must get this on the record. The 6 most important commanders in tomorrow's game. It is time for the Pick 6.
The 6 biggest commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
All right. Michael, do we have the fancy numbers today? Do we have a big old fancy number 1 today? We don't? Okay. All right. Got the head shake. No, it's all right. Honestly, we're going to have to do this so fast, it doesn't matter. The time we don't have to waste. Here I am wasting time. Number 1 is Charles Leno. 6 most impactful commanders is our goal here, and he is going to have the most frequent matchup with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a monster, man. Like, he is as gifted of an athlete as there is in the NFL, and he uses that athleticism without having to be the most polished pass rusher, and Charles Leno at sometimes really struggles with athleticism. Kayvon Thibodeau is a perfect example. Thibodeau is not a phenomenal pass rusher, but he's a guy that can dominate certain matchups, and a flexy, bendy, powerful, fast guy is what like Kayvon Thibodeau is, and Leno struggles. And that makes it pretty terrifying to know that Micah Parsons is coming. So the whole offensive line is going to be very important. They move Parsons around. I kind of made a joke on Take Command that Parsons might try to get a sack one-on-one with every single Commander's lineman, and I'm only half joking. He is that flexible in their defense. He is that good of a rusher. And they also like stunt and loop him and do all kinds of stuff that happens at this crazy speed because he's 4.3 fast. So Charles Leno, I'm going to isolate as the most important guy, because when it's time to like saddle up and block one-on-one, he's probably the guy. But that could wind up ultimately being true for anybody on that offensive line. Number 2, Benjamin St-Juste. Again, you are being asked to be a number 1 corner, even though you're not a number 1 corner. I think he draws the CeeDee Lamb matchup in part because they want the size and length of St-Juste versus what Kendall brings, but also because CeeDee moves around a lot. And so if you can get St-Juste on him in the slot and avoid him matching up with like Danny Johnson, that's probably ideal. Obviously, it's going to depend on if they're in man or zone and who's helping and all that kind of stuff. But it could be a big day for Benjamin St-Juste in terms of a day where you either give up a ton of big plays or you have a bunch of PBUs, and God forbid, Benjamin St-Juste, go get yourself a pick on Thanksgiving. Like, let's show off some ball skills, even though that has not been his thing in his career. Number 3, Cody Barton. Can he help the communication? He can certainly help them in coverage. David Mayo actually plays the run really well, and they've been awesome against the run during most of the stretch where Barton has been out. The fourth quarter of last week's game, notwithstanding, but Mayo makes a ton of plays in the backfield, but then you see the ball get thrown over his head, or something out to a flat and he can't chase it down, or it's a 20-yard gain instead of an 8-yard gain. Those kinds of things are happening a lot because Mayo's a backup linebacker, and that's who he is. But Barton is back. How quickly can he adjust, and can he help some of the miscommunication that's happened, some of the coverage busts? Can they just get communicated better because he's in there? He takes that leadership role seriously. He was starting to play better ball, too, when he went out. How fast/quickly can he pick it up? Number 4, Terry McLaurin. Again, big game on the road. Can your star make a play? Plus, he's had some pretty good games against Dallas in his career. You've got a bunch of corners that take gambles. Can they protect long enough to keep Sam Howell upright and get those shot plays off? But can Terry finally bust the cap off of this Commanders offense that has been, explosive 25 yards and in, but hasn't made any big plays down the field? Terry certainly has some opportunities given the matchups this weekend. Number 5, KJ Henry. The Dallas offensive line is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Their weakest spot is right tackle. So it is likely that is where KJ Henry is going to line up. James Smith-Williams is out in this game. So can KJ Henry get some pressures? Or do they try something different? F.A. Obata's obviously out. He's on IR. He's done for the year. Do they kick John outside? Like, I would be trying to create matchups. And it's not something they've done. They were planning on moving Chase around a little bit when he was here, and then he got hurt, and you never saw the Chase at 3 technique thing. But can you create matchups in the way that, they do for a Dexter Lawrence inside in New York, sliding him around, making sure he's got one-on-ones? The way they move Micah around in Dallas, the way they move Chase around, or the Bosa or Nick Bosa around in San Francisco. They're just really good on the offensive line. And so you've got to find a way to generate pressure. They'll obviously blitz. They did a great job of that last week to the tune of 9 sacks. But can you take a guy like KJ Henry and say, hey, dude, we need you to win. We're going to give you a little bit of freedom here. Go get it. Go get after it. And whether it's him, whether it's Andre Jones, if Josh Pryor comes in and plays, kid they elevated off the practice squad, I don't care. Someone's got to get pressure, and the right tackle's the place to get it. You might move Tuhill over there. Be like, hey, you're our best pass rusher on the edge right now. So, Casey, go get it. So that's that. Michael, do you have someone that I haven't named that we can throw in here? I have 5 written down, and I honestly am having trouble isolating a 6th. So if there's someone that I have not said that you are like that guy outside, and obviously like we kind of stay away from Sam. He's pretty obvious. Leno, St. Juice, Barton, McLaurin, Henry.
Maybe Brian Robinson.
That's who I think I was leaning towards. It looks like Antonio Gibson's questionable, so you might have some support there in the form of Gibson. But I think another way that you slow down the pass rush is the screen game, and they've been hit with some screens this year. Obviously, Gibson is big in that area for Washington, but Robinson's had a fantastic year in that department. So not just as a running threat, because if you can run it on them and not have to drop Sam back, excellent. Also, B-Rob as a pass catcher could be huge, whether it's quick outlets or design screens, getting him one-on-one with linebackers. I like that a lot. Brian Robinson will be our 6th. All right, when we get back, it is time to welcome Dave Johnson to the show on a Wizards game day. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is a Wizards game day, which means it is time to bring in Dave Johnson. Let's hit that fancy intro music.
Time to get the radio party started.
Blocked by Bilal Coulibaly. Oh, boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pool, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right there.
These intros are so sweet.
Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for three. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
You better go on.
Dave joins us from Charlotte. Dave, I feel like you were just in Charlotte. I feel like all you've been is in Charlotte.
I know. I knew I've been in here too much because I qualified for Chick-fil-A rewards at the Chick-fil-A I go to here in Charlotte. So, yeah, no, there's 30 teams in the NBA, but this is our third meeting this month with Charlotte, and the second here in Charlotte. But that's it. So I had to cash in my Chick-fil-A reward for a free sandwich today because it's only good at the participating location, and that's here in Charlotte. So this is my last trip to Charlotte this season.
Yeah, well, I'm just happy for you guys that you fly private because, man, that airport, having been in it on Thanksgiving, that place is a zoo. So at least you don't have to deal with that. That's good. How was the Chick-fil-A line?
Although the Chick-fil-A was great. And again, the key is always, as I say, the pickle, and we thank them for being a wonderful Wizards sponsor. And yes, I eat breakfast there, too. That's how I racked up all these
That's the
rewards.
way to do it, yeah.
That's the way I get the bacon and egg biscuit and then the Greek yogurt parfait. I mean, It may not be really Greek, but it's still very good. So
it's all Greek to me,
It's a
Dave.
wonderful experience. It is all Greek. Now, here's another thing. As people are listening, we can talk about private jets, and I'm not trying to complain, but remember, these jets fly in the same sky. So, for example, yesterday we were stuck on the tarmac at Dallas for an hour and a half because there was a ground stop. So we just hope that everybody is getting to where they're trying to get to safely as they can, because when I came here to the arena in Charlotte, it's still rainy and foggy here. I think it's cleared up where you guys are.
Yeah.
As at no extra charge, I give you a southeastern weather forecast. But it seems like Thanksgiving, there's always bad weather at airports, and that adds to the challenge, which is why, and again, this is another lesson for your listeners. I know it's a dated reference, but I hope they know the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It is a classic, and it's set over Thanksgiving weekend. Google it, rent it. It'll get you in the holiday mood. It's a feel-good story, and you'll laugh a lot.
That's great. We love a movie recommendation. We love a weather report. You just never know what you're going to get from Dave Johnson. You just know you're going to enjoy it. The radio party tonight. By the way, do you have anybody with you tonight? I saw Glenn's doing television. How is he abandoning you for Wes Hall during the holidays?
Well, yeah, I mean, just make a note of the fact that somehow he's abandoned me over the Thanksgiving holiday. But we do have Brian Alvin with us here tonight. So the show will go on. We'll have the Michelob Ultra post-game show, and we'll be able to connect with people. We hope to have fun with people as they're probably on the road tonight, traveling someplace for this holidays. And the reason why I'm giving weather and movie suggestions and a soliloquy is you probably can't tell, but this remains the loudest pregame experience in the NBA. There are the reason there are flight delays in the Charlotte Douglas Airport is because of the Spectrum Center's public address system is throwing off the radar in Charlotte, and that's why this city is being crippled right now, because they're announcing it here in Buzz City. You can buy merchandise and all kinds of stuff, and I can't hear a word I'm saying.
I do remember that from last time you were on in Charlotte, and for that reason, I'm glad this is our last game in Charlotte this season. All right, Dave Johnson is with us from the Spectrum Center down in Charlotte. Pre-game gets going in about 20 minutes here on the Team 980. To the actual basketball, Dave, one thing that I liked, obviously you lose 142 to 129, you give up a bunch of points. There's a lot not to like about the Wizards game against the Bucks the other night. That's, as we talked about, that's going to happen this season. I like the fact that Jordan Poole took a ton of shots. How did they get him involved in the offense? And it wasn't an efficient 30 points, but he had just not taken enough shots for the role that I think they wanted him to take on this year. How were they able to get him to just be the guy taking the shots, and how do they carry that into hopefully more efficient basketball from him moving forward?
It'll be more efficient when he makes shots, but he's not going to make shots unless he takes shots. So it is a catch-22. It was not a pretty 30 points the other night, but this is a team that has to stay process-driven, and that means getting Jordan Poole involved and in flow and not putting too much pressure on himself. And again, saying things like process-driven is not very sexy. And again, the Wizards, despite just getting killed in second chance points, had a chance to win. They took the lead in the fourth quarter. Again, that's not sexy. The point is not, to just have a chance to win, but is also to win. But, this is part of when we analyze it and break it down and discuss it. We're still only 13 games into this season, and with a team with 8 new players. What I'm saying is we are seeing signs, you're seeing signs that it's going to get better with this team. It just, if you're not, watching or listening to the games, you're not getting that sense. You're picking up your phone and seeing what the score is and the record is, and it can look bad because it is bad, the record. But again, this season was never about the record. So it is about, getting Jordan Poole. And this is why Kyle Kuzma had a career-high 13 assists. He said that he was consciously trying to get everyone involved because we know what he can do or the scoring load that he can take on. But, that's not developing this team. So, it's another step that you want to see tonight against the Charlotte Hornets team. And, again, as we talk about the way Denny is doing or the way Bilal is doing, what is going to be exciting for this team is not how they're doing on November 22nd, but what does it look like on December 22nd? What does it look like on January 22nd? And for Jordan Poole, I have to believe that it's going to look better. And again, it was not a very efficient 30 points the other night, but you're not going to become efficient by being shy and by being retiring and not trying to get involved in the offense. So it's going to, I believe it's going to come for him. I'm not saying that because, I'm reading his press clippings. It's just that he's got the talent. He's shown it in the NBA, and I believe the shots that he's missing are going to go because history says they're going to go.
Dave Johnson with us from the Spectrum Center in Charlotte. Dave, safe travels back. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Best to everyone in the Wizards family. Have a great call tonight, and then you don't have to go to Charlotte anymore this year.
Good. There we go. So it's a good thing I got my Chick-fil-A sandwich this afternoon. Listen, thankful for everyone. Thankful for the connection with the Hoffman Show and the entertainment you provide, and let's keep this fun going.
Absolutely. All right, we'll talk to you next week, Dave. Thank you, sir. That is Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, final thoughts on Commanders Cowboys. We wrap up the show, and it is time for Real Things Real People Said into Real Microphones. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's almost here. Thanksgiving break. Made it. Yeah. Got a full fist pump out of Mike there. Yeah. It was like a Tiger Woods style fist pump.
Bang.
Mike just won the Masters in 1990. Were you alive in 1997?
No. I was born in 99. The
The
90s, baby.
Yeah, so am I. February of 1990. Which, like, it's always funny because I'm at an age now where, like, I look at someone like you and I'm like, God, I remember 1990. Like, I was a fully lucid, elementary schooler in 1999. And then people hear my birthday that are older than me are like, oh my God, you were born in the 90s. And now, like, but someone, we got kids that are going to college that are like, you were born in 1990? And, like, this will happen. And now I sound like an old man yelling at a cloud or talking, I don't know. You young whippersnapper, you'll understand one day. But, like, what happens is there's kind of, you get stuck in, like, your teenage years in terms of a point of reference on the math. And so, like, 1970 is supposed to be, like, 30 or 40 years ago. And it's like, no, we're at the point where that's 50, 60 years ago soon. Like, in 2030, 2030, which is 7 years away, 1970 will be 60 years ago. And, like, 1990 is supposed to be like, oh, that wasn't that long ago. And it's like, no, that's when I was born. And in February, I'll be 34. And, like, the age of people born in a certain year becomes this, like, mind you-know-what that really just messes with you as you get older. Which is inevitable. It's better than the alternative, which is you stop counting, if you will. So I'll take it, but it is kind of a weird thing. Anyway, you know enough about sports to get the Tiger Woods 1997 reference, though. So that's nice. You know your history.
Oh, yeah. You know what's weird I was thinking about the other day is that we're so close to 2015 being a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just makes no sense to me.
Like, well, that hit me like crazy last year. Yeah, last year, because like 2022 was a decade for me graduating college. And I was like, what? I've been out of college a decade? That's crazy. Or like I was talking to one of my buddies from college the other night, and we were kind of just like BSing about like, oh, when we'll do this. He's getting married this summer. Like, I've now been married for a couple years. Our other best friend in that group, like, now has 2 kids. And it's like, I don't know, maybe we'll all get together when we're 40. And it's like, yeah, when's that? That's not that far, relatively speaking. Like, we're closer to 40 by a lot than we were to graduating college. So that's a good time. That's depressing as hell. But it's also not, there's your 30s are great. I'm sure you've heard people say that. A lot of people will get to their 30s and are like, well, thank God I'm done with my 20s. Not that you want to wish the years away, but, there's beauty in all stages of life. I'm feeling very philosophical. Maybe it's the season of gratitude just getting to me.
Amen.
All those good feelings. I don't know. I got a weird feeling about tomorrow, Mike. Like, I pick the Cowboys, and I think they're going to win. And if they do, I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be like, the Commanders, there's no, we know what's up. But these are the exact silly situations that they go do something dumb and win a game.
That might as well be a playoff win in my book, because we're obviously not making the playoffs. And if we can beat our biggest rival when the whole country's watching, I'll celebrate it as if we won the playoff game.
See, that's the thing. Like, that would be a fun poll question. Like, if this was a full week, I would be curious to take calls on that and be like, will you be excited if you beat Dallas? Because it's like, hey, we beat Dallas. That's the best. Or will you be like, why can't you knuckleheads play like this against teams where if you did this, you'd win by 20? And like that, I don't know. I almost feel like I would be more frustrated if they win. Because it's like, you puked on yourself twice against the Giants. No one else has beaten, like the Giants have beaten nobody but you and the Cardinals when it was the week 2 Cardinals. And it took a miraculous fourth quarter comeback for that to happen. And then you go beat the Cowboys? Like, I don't know, man. This is a weird team. I also still am abiding by, until Rivera's gone, my like guiding principle of the Snyder era was the dumbest possible thing will happen at all times, and them winning is the dumbest possible outcome. you have this week where it's like, should they have fired Rivera? Oh, if they just wait till after Thanksgiving, do it next week, it's fine. We know they're going to lose to Dallas, whatever. So what's the dumbest possible thing that could happen? They'll beat Dallas because that's what happens with this silly franchise.
Yeah, I mean, all we do is play up to our competition and play down to our
That's
competition.
true, too.
So I really wouldn't be terribly surprised if we somehow squeaked out a win tomorrow.
The one exception to that is when you play really good quarterbacks. And, like, whether it's been Josh Allen, Mahomes, Rodgers, like, those guys have pretty consistently – I guess Rodgers in Green Bay, there was the year that Heineke won that game. But, like, more often than not, under Rivera, if you play really good quarterbacks, you get trounced. And Dak is playing at a really high level. Now, is Dak those guys? No. So maybe you can find a way to make him look like not those guys and remind folks. But if Dak plays at the level he's played at the last couple of weeks, could get ugly. We made predictions earlier. I'm at 30-20, Dallas winning, but I guess technically that's Washington covering as the number's at 12.5. That would also hit the over, whatever that's worth. Mike, you had it somewhere around that as well?
Yeah, I would say 31-27, maybe 24.
I would love a close game.
Yeah. Give me the over.
Yeah, I'd like to see good football because last week you saw crap. Last week you saw fumble Rooskies. Don't need that. Anthony has the Cowboys in his official pick. We didn't get a score from Ant, so there's that. All right, that's all on that game. The Take Command pregame show is on tomorrow, although Logan and I are not hosting it. Our good friend Denton Day, of course, you know him from the Kevin Sheehan show, and the Burgundy and Gold Game Day live show. He will be hosting the pregame. I'll probably pop on with Denton. I actually got to send him a text and let him know that I'll be available. Can't leave my guy hanging on Thanksgiving. He does a phenomenal job when he hosts that show for us in the preseason. And Denton's just a good host, good dude all around. So make sure you check him out if you're driving around. On the Take Command pregame show. Logan and I will do a post-game podcast on Friday, so nothing immediate. So if you're out and about, driving around to your Thanksgiving plans, starting Friday morning, for kind of mid-morning, we'll probably put that podcast up as soon as we get to record and edit it and send it up to the interwebs. So you will have some instant reaction from us this weekend. And, of course, we'll talk about it all, our usual Monday slate on Monday. More Take Command, Michael Phillips, etc. First and 10. We'll do that all on Monday. So with all that said, let's wrap up one last show before the holiday with real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
A couple of these feature the one and only LeBron James. LeBron and Anthony Davis sat down with the Lakers social media team and tried to do a lip reading challenge. Anthony Davis had the cards. LeBron had some headphones on and couldn't hear and tried to read AD's lips, and it sounded like this.
King James. King James. Some James. Who? King James. Pronunciate, bro. Help me out.
Oh, that he says pronunciate instead of enunciate.
King. You can't pronounce it. King. King. Can. Nope. King.
Keep trying.
Can't. King James. King James.
The music, by the way, excellent touch by the Lakers.
What's wrong with your K's? King. I mean, what I'm supposed to say? What's wrong with your K's? King. You can pronunciate, bro.
Pronunciate. That's really funny. So Anthony Davis can't pronunciate. Can students at the University of Maryland spell? So some young lads at the Maryland-Michigan game this weekend did the old let's paint our chest, and they stood in an order that was not correct. Instead of Terps, it's spelled strep. Yep. S-T-R-E-P. Yikes.
If you are into diseases, this is the place to be.
Well, actually, I think this is supposed to go here. Like it looks like a Penn State pressure. They're just kind of confused.
Does anyone have a throat culture?
That is Jason Benetti on Fox. Jason is one of the funniest people I've ever met. Excellent delivery on that. If you're, I will say, I heard that before I saw it, and I could not believe he uttered the phrase, if you're into diseases. And I was like, what did they okay, it's strep. That could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot more embarrassing. Remember, gents and ladies, if you paint up, stay in order. Stay in order. Otherwise, you might wind up in real things real people said into real microphones. Last but not least, you got the walk-ins at the Lakers game last night. It was a TNT game, which meant that Charles Barkley and company had thoughts on some of the outfits.
Is that how you come to a game? That's how you come to a game.
If the Lakers win tonight, they'll be 4-0 in their group and win the East.
What the hell?
Win the West Group A.
What the hell is that? He's a pirate. There come quick.
All hands on deck.
Come on, man. The Pirates of the Caribbean. Hey, Halloween was 2 weeks ago.
Captain Crunch.
That is what they thought of Jordan Clarkson's outfit, which I don't know. I guess, yeah, all hands on deck, Pirates of the Caribbean. It looks kind of like Johnny Depp in that movie. That's, it's got like kind of a square hat. Not square, a triangular hat, long sleeves, wacky bit from Jordan Clarkson. But that's what really that show's about. And occasionally, that's what our show's about. Michael, thank you, sir. Excellent work today. This was a very busy show for you back in studio, or on your side of the studio. You did a great job. Much, much appreciated. Anthony and I will be back on Monday. Have a safe, happy holidays. Express your gratitude. Express your love for those that you get to spend it with. And enjoy the game tomorrow. Try your best anyway. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.